Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Rando. What is Rando? Rando is a new segment I'm doing where I randomly talk about current events, and some of them could be coffee talks if I wanted to spend more time with them. Some of them could be World War III updates, but they're just something that's not long enough to warrant its own video, and so I put several topics together in a random way. So, first up on Rando, we're going to talk about the Iran and Israel conflict. So, I talked about how Iran was going to strike Israel, and boy, howdy, they absolutely did, almost on cue. And they sent somewhere around 300 ordinances against Israel. Now, Israel has painted this as a total victory on behalf of Israel, that they were able to shoot down 99% of the ordinance that came in. And they've declared more or less a victory, and they claim to have humiliated Iran. And at first look, on the day it happened, I was under the same opinion. But when I started to look a little closer, I realized a few things that you may not know. I uncovered some things that are not talked about in mainstream media. One of them is the fact that the ordinance that they sent against Israel was their B stock, right? It was their bench crew. It wasn't their most advanced missiles. It wasn't their most advanced drones. And one commentator on this said that they basically sent the stuff against Israel that Russia didn't even want to buy in their Ukraine struggle. And so there's that. And then plus, they expected those ordnance to get shot down. That's why they sent the number that they did. That's part of the strategy, is you overwhelm the Iron Dome. And they proved that it could be overwhelmed. They did in fact overwhelm their defenses enough to get at least 4 ordinances that I saw, which is a little bit more than 1% of the ones they sent. They sent 4, and or they managed to hit with at least 4 that I know of. I've seen video of these 4 missiles striking their target. So their idea was to send the drones out as a decoy, and then to send a barrage of missiles, and they hoped to strike some damage against an Air Force base in the desert, in the Negev desert. And that's exactly what happened. Now, they told everyone they were going to do it. They gave them 72 hours advance notice of the attack, told them what day it was going to occur on, and they did it to save face with their people, but they also did it to prove that Israel was it was possible to hit Israel. And I think they proved that you can. If you send 300, 3 or 4 are going to get through and hit the desired target. The damage that was done is kind of being covered up by Israel. They claim there was little or no damage. Iran says there was quite a bit of damage on that Air Force base. And of course, since it's a secure area, nobody knows but the Israeli military. And now the Israeli government has declared that they are going to strike back. It's kind of weird. They declared victory in defeating the Iranian attack, but now they need to pay them back. The question is it going to be, tit for tat? Is it going to be an equal and reasonable response, or are they going to give them a Gaza-style response? You hit us, we're going to destroy your country. And I believe that information is being disseminated through back channels, that there's a disagreement, that there's one faction in Israel that wants to blow Iran off the face of the planet and just start an all-out war with Iran. There's another faction that wants to do a measured response. The measured response could be an attack on their nuclear research facility. The only problem with the attack on the nuclear research facility is that it's buried a mile deep inside of a mountain. That Iran is not like Gaza. It's not a desert of sand. It has areas where there's a lot of bedrock and mountainous areas in Iran, and their nuclear weapons facility is buried in this mountain. And most agree that they're not even certain that the United States has bunker busters with enough depth penetration to take out the nuclear facility. Now, they could bomb the doorways, the entranceways, the vent holes, that kind of thing, and try to disable it through a surface attack. Um, then there's another group that wants to just hit their military leaders like they did. That's what they did that started all of this when they hit the embassy in Syria. They want to do something like that again. And there's yet another faction that just wants to do a cyber attack, that they believe through attacking their technology they could disable uh, a lot of their electronic gadgetry and a lot of their computer systems through hacking or potentially an EMP type of device. And the argument against that is it doesn't look that great on paper. It doesn't look like you attacked them. You can't show, destroyed buildings. You can't get the street cred that you get from a traditional attack. I think they're going to fall short of a total destructive infrastructure takedown, which is what the hardliners in Israel want to do. They want to take down Iran by taking out their nuclear power and their generators, their power stations. They want to take out their radio. They want to take out military defenses like radar installations. They want to go after. They want to stone them back to the Stone Age and make a real impact and teach anybody a lesson not to go against Israel. And there's this argument going on, and they're taking their time, and part of it is psychological warfare. They're taking their time and making Iran sweat. The more time they can keep Iran at high alert, the more money it costs Iran, the more relaxed they get when something doesn't happen. So they're playing that to the hilt. But one thing they can all agree on, that all of Israeli leadership agrees on, is they're going to do something to Iran. Iran has stated that they are going to unleash the dogs of war, that they're going to go full-bore attack and use their hypersonic missile technology that they didn't use in their first attack. They use older traditional methodology, drones, first-generation drones. They used cruise missiles, which have been around since the 70s or later, maybe even the 60s, since cruise missiles have been around. And this is primarily what they use. But they have a lot of hypersonic missiles. They have a lot of very high-end ballistic missiles, long-range ballistic missiles that they could have used that they really didn't use. They used the first gen. They didn't use the most recent ones. So they're saying that any attack against Iran by Israel, they're saying that this is done as far as they're concerned. You hit us, we hit you back, even Steven. And they want to see the end of it. But Israel's not going to let it lay. And they said, Iranians said that if Israel attacks them, they're going to hit them with everything they got. So it looks like this is inevitably going to pop off, because you can't have this attitude that I can hit you, and if you hit me back, I'm going to hit you back harder. That's kind of what bullies do. And so this is the attitude that Israel has, and it's going to always cause problems in any conflict. They're basically saying we can do whatever we want to you, and if you fight back, we're going to kill you. And that's not tenable, right? That's not maintainable. That's not how you maintain peace. And so Israel has no decision to be peaceful. They don't want peace. I'm not sure they ever wanted peace, to tell you the truth. And they came into this from a war, World War II. They went into Israel and immediately started a war, and they've been at war, and all they know is war. And this is the first time that Iran has ever directly attacked them. And so I'm assuming it's just going to spiral tit for tat. It's called escalation. No one's willing to de-escalate. So yeah, expect that to turn into a wider war. Of course, we've talked about how Russia's not going to sit by if we get involved. They're already ticked at us about what's going on in Ukraine, and World War III is right there looming. Now I'm going to jump subjects, because this is Rando, and we're going to move over to the Oklahoma double murder. Many of you might have heard of this, where a preacher's wife and another woman, both moms, were traveling. The preacher's wife was serving as a monitor for visitation that was supervised. She was a supervisor for supervised visitation for this other mom who was going to go pick her kids up from their paternal grandmother's custody. The grandma had custody, and this really boils down around the fact that the grandmother who has the custody of these kids is also a powerful rancher in Texas. and she's friends with judges. She's friends with the mayor of the town there. She's on the Cattlemen's Association board, and she's also part of this group that we're learning a little bit about called God's Misfits. And apparently, it's some kind of anti government militia group. And they're a part of this, and they apparently use their connections in that group to successfully execute a double murder. They murdered their grandchildren's mother and this preacher's wife who was there as a supervisor of the visitation. And kind of boils down to the mom who was killed has a brother who they accused of doing something sexual to the kids, and this was their motivation for killing the mom, was to prevent the mom from ever having custody so her brother would never have access to the children. But the whole thing just looks like power hungry narcissism on part of the grandmother taken to its full extent. A narcissist will murder you if they can feel like they can get away with it, and they might have had a chance. They did everything right as far as murder mystery method goes. They used burner phones. They planned it out all out ahead of time. But the mistake they made is one of the killers, there were 4 involved, the grandmother and 3 others, and they disposed of the bodies on one of their ranches, on one of their properties. And they buried their burner phones along with the victims' phones right there with the bodies. And of course, it was the geo data that came from the pinging of the cell phones that led them right to the property, right to the bodies, and all of the evidence all buried together in one hole. So they really messed up the cleanup on that, and they did not get away with it. They're facing the death penalty potentially. The grandmother seems to have already confessed that she did it and was proud of it in her in her interview with police once arrested. A prominent municipal judge in the area was actually in the house of one of the killers when the raid happened. When they came with a warrant and the geodata to search for the bodies on the property and to search the house for any evidence, they found a municipal judge was there when it happened. He claimed to not know anything about it. He claimed to not know anything about this God's Misfit group, and he claimed that he was good friends with one of the murderers, and he can't believe that he did it. And after doing an interview making those basic statements, he was quickly fired by the mayor, forced to resign for even talking to the press. So we've got some government corruption. We've got a small town system that had turned against this woman and was taking her children away, and she fled to Kansas, and they met at the halfway point that just happened to be in Oklahoma. And so the Oklahoma authorities are the ones doing the prosecution because the murders happened in Oklahoma. And it's 3 states having to work together. The girl had ran to Kansas with her kids. Well, she ran to Kansas and was trying to visit her kids who were still with their grandmother in Texas, It's all kind of a convoluted mess, but that's been dominating our news here, is this crazy double murder that it appears the preacher's wife was just helping this lady out by acting as a supervisor for the visits. She had nothing to do with it, and they killed her as well. And the Kansas community is really upset about that portion of this. And so, yeah, it kind of started in Texas, bled over into Kansas, and the murders itself happened in Oklahoma and in the Panhandle. And so it's a real mess. You might find it interesting. It's a true crime story for sure. Now, moving right along, because this is Rando, we're going to move to another random event. Apparently, the government has, in fact, admitted that Langley Air Force Base, along with a few other Air Force bases, were hit with a swarm of what they call drones. And so up to 40 drones flew over and hovered over Langley Air Force Base recently. And we have video online of the event taken by a private citizen from quite a distance away. This eyewitness says that these drones weren't like any drones he'd ever seen. He said they were glowing orbs about the size of a car, and they had in them flashing white and orange lights that flashed at different frequencies, and each one flashed at different frequencies, and they were seemingly random in how they flashed. And he said they were absolutely a round ball of light the size of an automobile. The government claims that these are drones. This was some kind of surveillance move against them. They're not saying who did it, who's behind it. I think it might be the Chinese. Don't. Do they have some kind of surveillance glowing globe, some kind of orb that is a surveillance device? And are they surveilling our military defenses and looking for our nuclear response, infrastructure? Is this part of them and their 100-year plan to eventually target the United States with some kind of direct attack? It could be aliens. Don't. Most of the people, including the eyewitness, believe that this is not technology that any of us possess. They had it's anti-gravity technology. They couldn't identify any working mechanisms. It's simply a round ball of light. So this could be the aliens, watching and looking at the United States nuclear preparedness because they're aware of all the conflict in the world and they think World War III is about to break out and it could go nuclear. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments section. That's all for today. I brought you 3 completely unrelated topics. It's all very rando, which is what the younger generations calls random, I guess. They don't say it's random. They say it's rando. I don't know. I thought it was a cool name. So I hope you enjoyed this first segment of Rando, and we'll talk to you again later in the week with some messages on Jesus Christ and Christian living, as well as keeping you up to date on what's going on, and we might even work a coffee talk in. So we'll see you later this week, and we'll see you next time on Rando.